Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. If you're new to me and to the show, this is, first of all, welcome. This is where we talk about the intersection between your health as a woman, your sacred work at home as a wife and mother, and how to tap into your life's work as a creative and healer in a way that feels aligned, authentic, and joyful. Joy is such a big topic, and I keep hearing women and mothers talk about joy a lot, or talk about the lack thereof. And I get it. I mean, I believe that all mothers are healers. And we can make the world a better place, beginning with us. And this is why I call the show Health Begins with Mom, because joy is something that we cannot get from the outside world. This is something that has to be done, has to be learned and cultivated internally. So before we get into today's topic, I just want to remind you that all the show notes from today's episode can be found over at my website. So www.healthbeginswithmom.com/ep-94. Woohoo! We're almost at 100. That's so cool. All right. So today we are talking about how to respond when your child says, Mom is fat, or Mommy is fat, or Mommy has a big belly. I've heard my clients say this many times on my diva date calls. Women, I don't know if the right word is complain, but I guess let's say they share, this as a concern, or even something that they really find themselves just kind of like not knowing how to respond. And the majority of the women I work with are very holistic and conscious moms and parents who understand that exploding or shaming the child for saying something like this, it's wrong. But then the question remains, how do I respond? So today I wanted to talk about that. So, I've talked about weight many times on the show. You should definitely check out my interview with Marcy Warhaft, who is a body image expert, and she's written a book about it. And so after this episode, I really highly recommend for you to check out my interview with her. You can go to episode 38. Also, 2 episodes ago, I think episode 92 was where I talked about whether, saying, you lost weight as a way of compliment. Is it really the best compliment we can give to a woman in our life? So, the weight and fat is a conversation that arises a lot on this show because, we talk about health and we talk about healing. But regardless of, whether you've gained weight postpartum, or you're struggling with hormonal imbalances, maybe a thyroid condition, PCOS, or any other condition then that makes it difficult to keep the weight off, or maybe you've gained some weight after having kids and it's been years since you've had your children, but you just haven't prioritized yourself and feeling good in your and you haven't really learned how to feel good in your body, because, let's be honest, let's face the truth. We're all busy, and deep down inside, we know that taking care of our body is pretty simple, right? What we really need to do is to eat less and move more. Like, simple as that. The entire dieting industry could be just drilled down to eating less and moving more. So yes, this idea is simple, but it's definitely not easy. Because at the end of the day, it's all about habits and how we are showing up, not once in a while, right? So if you eat one healthy meal, it's not going to do anything for you. But if you eat consistent, if you eat well and you nourish yourself over a period of time, right, then you will start seeing results. So it's small actions over a long period of time that lead you to results. It's like the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? If you eat an apple every single day, you will eventually not have to go to the doctor and not have to pay for treatments or healing or whatever. But if you eat a Hershey bar a day, then what will happen? Well, after a day or two, nothing will happen. But if you eat that Hershey bar for every single day for 30 days or 60 days, definitely the body will respond. So, I'm not going to get into why we're gaining weight and why we are out of shape right now. This is not the topic of today's podcast. But regardless of why you feel like you are keeping the weight on, let's talk about how to respond when our beloved children, who we love so much, are commenting about our body, okay? Because I understand it could be hurtful. It could be hurtful, especially if you are someone who have been carrying the baggage of, body image issues and not really knowing how to keep the weight off. And, it's a struggle. It's a year-long struggle for you. So I understand that it could be a big trigger for you. But at the same time, when we're raising children, whether it's girls or boys, doesn't really matter. It is important to bring this on the table and to unpack it and really process this feeling and emotion, because at the end of the day, it is an emotion, charged emotion, but it is an emotion, and it's a feeling that deserves to be treated and looked at. So I don't really care. I know it's funny, but I don't really care about fat so much. I mean, yeah, I've gained some weight, but honestly, even though people around me care very, very much, I'm not going to say who, but believe me, I have enough people in my life who would prefer me to be smaller, leaner, skinnier, whatever. But I believe in long-lasting results, and self-care is something that I want to do for myself, not for my husband, not for my dad, not for my mom, my neighbor who is obsessed with body weight and really can't seem to have any other topics in mind other than dieting and losing weight. And I think it's kind of lame and it's kind of sad, right? What I do care about is climbing up the stairs without losing my breath. What I do care about is being able to play with my kids without needing to stop and catch my breath. I'm 35 years old. I'm not 70, So, and a lot of my clients are around the same age group, between 35 to 40, sometimes 45. But still, this is considered young. And if we're finding ourselves really just feeling not well, not healthy, not vibrant inside of our bodies, then, there are things that we can do and we should do. It's not so much about pushing yourself too hard. It's really about prioritizing yourself. And of course, this is what I teach in my practice and in my programs is when we are taking care of ourselves as women, it has to be done in a way that understands, from a place of understanding how we are designed as women. Okay, because we have a very intricate hormonal system, digestive system, nervous system, and all of these systems, they work together. So if we are killing ourselves at the gym and, pushing ourselves too hard, we might be, feeling really good for maybe an hour or two. But then what we're not realizing is that we are really not being sensitive and sensible of our nervous system that is hijacked, and our adrenals are pumping cortisol over and over and over again, and that is unhealthy. So I really want you to come from a place start taking care of yourself from a place of understanding how you're built as a woman so that you can thrive as a woman. All right, again, you see how I steer into why we're losing weight. But let's stay on point with today's topic. All right. So I want to, like I said, I want to be able to dance, to jump, to run, and I want to be able to move my body without feeling like a stuffed up sausage, which is, oh my gosh, this is how I felt. This is how my clients feel, and that's okay. This is what it is. I don't want to feel like I'm too heavy. I personally don't like this feeling. Okay. So this is the reason why for me, $200 a month that I spend on memberships at my yoga studio and a boot camp studio, for me, this is a fixed cost. For me, this is something that I prioritize, and it's also the reason why I prioritize eating homemade, fresh, and simple foods that will get me to feel energized instead of tired and lethargic, right? So it really comes from a place of I matter and I deserve to feel good, regardless from my weight. Whether you're lean or a bit heavier, it doesn't matter. We all deserve to feel good. But that, the feeling good will have to start with an action, and the action has to start from a decision. So you have to decide that you matter. But so what? Let's say you're working on you're working on healing, and you're working on taking care of yourself and your body, and it takes time, and it's normal, and it takes time. And then, your child could be just, it could be out of the blue, or it could be in a heated moment, say something like, mommy is fat, or mommy has a big belly. and I get it. I mean, I personally don't have an experience of my kids saying this to me because, I guess for me, I don't spend a lot of time in front of a mirror and criticizing myself, and as much as I can, I show them that I love my body so dearly. And so I hope that they don't feel the need to even comment about it. But I have had moments where we'd shower together, and my girls would touch my belly, and they would touch my scars, and they not always say something, but sometimes I feel like they want to say, and so I prompt them to talk about it, and I do encourage them to share it with me, as opposed to keeping it inside. So I get it. This is a charged topic, especially if this is something that triggers you or used to trigger you. So how do we respond to that? So first and foremost, I think sorry guys, I think this is a great opportunity for you to have a deep chat with your child. And when I say deep, what I mean is a one-on-one time, to have a special time, not when people are around, or not when this happened in the moment. It's just something that, to keep a mental note of, and then take it maybe to the time before they go to bed, or maybe to create a window of 15 or 20 minutes of special time where you can discuss this with your child. And it doesn't matter, whether it's a boy or a girl. I know I talk a lot about girls and daughters, but really it doesn't matter. So even if you have worked on yourself and are not triggered, I think it is a good idea to teach children how to communicate in the world, and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate to say to people, okay? And, the bottom line is that we teach people how to treat us. So it is, in my opinion, our job as parents to guide and direct children to be sensible and thoughtful people in the world. Also, even if you're like me, choosing deliberately not to have a TV at home, not to have beauty magazines, not to expose them to movies or media that is concentrated on body image a lot, chances are that your child had picked it up from the outside world, right? And I mean, unless you keep them at home 100% of the time, which is, I don't think it's realistic in today's world, but even, if they are exposed somewhat to the outside world, they can, and it's very likely that they will pick up on this stuff because, oh my God, it is everywhere. So maybe it could be, that your child has a friend whose parents do own a TV at home. Maybe it's a song that they've heard on the radio that talks about bodies. Maybe, a walk in the mall will raise a lot of questions. At least I know from my kids, which is why I actually try as much as possible not to go to the mall with my kids. But maybe, they would see women's naked bodies everywhere, and 99% of them would be lean and would have a particular shape of body. So if your child calls you fat, chances are that these thoughts or this language, they're lurking in their heads, and they need your help and guidance to process them. So in my opinion, you should take this as an opportunity to connect with them and discuss this important issue, because if you don't, it just grows and becomes even worse, and it becomes a monster that you really don't want to allow to grow. All right? And by the way, I know people talk a lot about the importance of a healthy body image, and they talk specifically about girls, and I agree. But I also think that this is an important issue to discuss with boys as well. So it could be that, your son said it or your daughter said it. Either way, this conversation has to be had with either or. All right? Because, these boys, they will grow to be men. And we do want them to, first and foremost, treat themselves well, with respect, and also the women around them, right? We want them to treat women with respect, sensitivity, and sensibility. So the first thing that you have to remember is to, as much as possible, and believe me, I know it's tough, I know it's difficult to do, but as much as possible to detach yourself, your own uncomfortable feelings and past hurts around your weight or body image. Okay, now I'm not saying to ignore these feelings or stuff them down or numb them. You absolutely have to deal with this on your own. And if you need some help with this, please reach out to me on Instagram. You can find me at Health Begins with Mom. And I would love to help you to get some clarity around this, as well as a sustainable plan that will feel easy and manageable and doable for you. And it will teach you how to take care of yourself and nourish yourself from within. But for the love of God, please do not shame your child or scold him or her for saying this to you. Okay? Very often children say things just because they've heard someone say it and they just repeat it, or they are learning how it feels to treat other people or to communicate with other people, right? When I say this, how does it make other people respond? So if you're using shame and you punish them, you're actually perpetuating the stigma around this, and your child learns that body fat is how they judge people, right? Especially if it's a very young child, if a person is thin, they're good, and if a person is fat, they're bad, right? You're familiar with this black and white kind of perspective, right? This is how children see the world. And so if you make a huge deal out of being fat, they are learning that being fat is bad. Okay? Now, the beauty of childhood is that children, they don't yet have the years long of baggage that they've been carrying around, not knowing how to process. With kids, you have to accept what they say at face value. This is the same with other hurtful things that they say. Things like, I hate you, mommy. I want to kill you. I want to break this house, etc., etc. I mean, I've heard my kids say a lot of hurtful things, and sometimes it's alerting me. I'm like, oh my gosh, where is this coming from? But at the same time, I also understand that what's really happening and what's really behind it all is a feeling. It's an emotion, and an emotion needs to be dissolved. It needs to be processed. It needs to be acknowledged, and then it's able to just kind of move through the body outside instead of being stuck in the body as a trauma, right? As a form of, hurt that is just kind of left inside of the body. So children say things because they are learning how to express how they feel, and it is absolutely crucial to hear them out and acknowledge what they feel and say without projecting your own insecurities on them. Now, if you struggle with this, if you feel like you don't have the energy to sit down and explain and talk to them, girl, we need to talk. What this means, if you are unable to take care of your child because there is so much emotion that arises for you, then that is a very strong sign that you need some healing to do, that you have some healing to do. So please reach out to me. Find me on Instagram at Health Begins with Mom, and let's talk. I do not want you to keep suffering. I do not want you to keep perpetuating this cycle, because it's not fair to you and it's not fair to your family. All right? So let's talk a little bit about some examples of the things that you can tell your children if they called you fat, or even if they say this about themselves. I mean, that is a whole other topic. But let's see what is the language and what is the sensible thing to do in those cases. So number one, what I love, the first approach that I would take and do take in this case is showing my kids a world of, a place that we revere, a place that we are in awe of. I really would like to raise kids and a family that sees higher power, higher source, or God, or whatever you call it, as the higher intelligence behind all things. And so what I suggest you to say is that human beings are children of God, and it is not right to see a person just as a chunk of meat. So for example, when we buy meat at the store, there is ground beef, there is lean beef, there is medium beef or whatever, and they all refer to the amount of fat in them, right? So I would really like to raise children who see people more than just their bodies, right? Because we are whole and we are complete with personalities and intellects and other interests. And when we say to someone, you are fat, we are basically being disrespectful to their humanity and the beauty of their soul. So instead, what you can say to me, if you feel like you want to comment about my body, you can say things like, I love how you take care of me, mommy. Or I love that I was in your tummy, mommy. Or it is so cool that I lived inside of your body for 9 months, mommy. Okay? So this is the beauty with children, that we can actually kind of like program them and even, input certain terminology and language into them. Again, remember, we are teaching people how to treat us. And we're also teaching them to be sensitive and sensible human beings. Okay? The other thing is to teach children that we are not fat. We have fat. So don't, that it's not right to identify a human being as an organism of fat. We are not, this is, identifying as fat or not fat, it's wrong, right? But we, as human beings, we all have fat, and fat helps to keep our body temperature stable and protects our muscles and bones. And fat is actually a very important macronutrient that human beings need in order to stay alive and survive, right? So we don't judge people based on how much fat they have. Our bodies are given to us by higher power, God, the universe, whatever it is that you want to call it. And we can't choose what kind of body we're going to get, right? So it is not right to judge a person based on their physical appearance. We are all beautiful and perfect just the way we are. And when you're able to see a person beyond their body shape or size, you are showing your humanity and your soul. Right? So this is something that I would like you to be very proud of, because that makes you who you are, not your body weight. Okay? And it's the same about me. Remember that I am also a child of God, a daughter of God, and I did not choose the body that I have. And I love my body because this body has given you, I was able to carry you, and now I have you in my life. So can you see how, it is always a better idea to help them see the world as a place that they revere, and that a place of so much awesomeness and so much greatness that we can have, right? It's really all a matter of perspective and mindset. So always elevate them and help them to feel like they are more than what they hear or what they think that they are. They are very special beings, as well as every other human being on this planet. And so if that is true, I will stop and think next time when I refer to a person as a chunk of meat. Okay? Now, after having, what I recommend, after having this kind of deep chat with your children about this and teaching them, not only, this is important, I find that a lot of us talk about what not to say and how not to treat people, but very rarely do we teach parents how, what to say, what yes to say, how to, what's the language to put in their, in their heads or in their mouth, so that they can have the tools and the communication tools to deal with these kind of situation, right? So let's say you've had this chat and you are teaching them not only what not to say, but also what to say. So I recommend you to open up the conversation even further, if appropriate, of course. It depends also on the age of the child and the situation. And so keeping context in mind. Say something like, I'm curious, sweetie, where did you hear this? Or have you heard someone say this to you or to someone else? Can you share with me? And then zip it. Stop talking and just listen. And you will be surprised as to what they say. You know, I've had countless conversations about this topic with my kids, and I was able to discover so many shady conversations and comments that they've had with people in our close family circle about body image and fat and weight and all that. And, you know, unfortunately, this is not something that I or you have control over, right? We cannot control the outside world. And we can't change people. But what we do have control over is how we respond and what we think is right and wrong. One of my goals in my parenting, in my mothering journey, is to raise children with a very strong sense of self. And I believe that this is how it's done. You know, it's not done with having a one speech once a year where you're kind of like spilling all of your, the entire contents of your gut onto them and you're teaching them. No, it is done every single day, every single bedtime routine, every single time, maybe you're showering with them or bathing with them. It is these little moments of connection, of touch points between you and your children that help them to feel closer to us, to feel safe in our presence. But also these are our opportunities to raise good human beings, right? And a lot of it actually is our own internal work, like Dr. Shefali Tabari talks about, right, in The Conscious Parent. We cannot possibly raise anybody unless we learn how to raise and parent ourselves. So a lot of what my work is about is teaching you how to take care of yourself so that you can take care of, the people who you love the most. One of the hardest things for me to teach my kids is to advocate for themselves in front of an adult. Not so much in front of children. So they're doing pretty well at school in terms of advocating for themselves, but especially grown-ups who help me to raise them. So grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, their friends' parents, etc., etc. It is definitely a struggle for me, but one that has to be front and center. And I do prioritize this, especially when we are raising daughters, because let's be honest, the topic and the conversation of body weight and body image, it's super important in the case of girls and young girls and women in today's society. So have that conversation, have the opportunity to connect with them and hear where they could possibly pick this up. All right. And also, so we talked about raising yourself and mothering yourself. This is an opportunity for you to become a little bit introspective here, right? Where could your child have picked this up? Be really, really honest with yourself. And I know that this requires courage. And I know that this requires a lot of, an ability to face yourself and face your triggers. But ask yourself, do you look at yourself in the mirror a lot? Do you talk to yourself and about yourself really negatively? Do you say things like, I'm too fat for this dress? Or I can't eat that? Or he needs to lose weight, making comments about other people's bodies outside, and your kids hear this. This could be a wake-up call for you. And if you do have this pattern, it's an opportunity to look at this and to look into and also heal from. And you can absolutely do that. Because this could be a generational pattern that you've picked up as well. And it can be used as an opportunity, like I said, to break from this pattern and change the mindset around this in your lineage. So my love, this is what I have for you today. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please let me know, if you have any thoughts, if you use any other ideas with your kids, or how do you respond? I would love to hear from you. If you can find me on Instagram, so find me. I go by @healthbeginswithmom. Send me a DM, tag me, maybe take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with your friends. If you think that this was helpful and it can serve other people as well. Also, I would so appreciate if you could share a rating or review for this show. The more reviews and ratings the show has, the more mothers and women can access and find this podcast. So if you can help me to reach out more people and share this message, I I would be forever grateful. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is what I have for you today. By the way, I just wanted to mention that I am working on a webinar for you guys. It's going to be on the topic of anxiety and overwhelm and how to heal from it and how to finally shift away your mindset and also to heal from it physically. I'm working on putting together the webinar. I already have a date. I know I don't yet have a registration link, but I am working on it. I just wanted you to already maybe put this in your calendar. So it's going to be March the 19th. I will have two time slots. So we will have 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will also have another session at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on that same day. So keep checking in with this podcast. Most likely by next week, I will also already have the link for registration, so you can go to my website and register for this webinar. And I would love to see you in person. Well, not in person, it will be online. But I would love to answer your questions and connect with you and help you solve this very, very debilitating problem that I know a lot of mothers have. So with that said, I am sending you off with tons of love, so much healing, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.